The sound of that tractor means it's time for us to go to work. Welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast powered by Hoopah Grading Company. My name is Brandon, and I am your host. So today we've got a special guest in the studio with us today. Burns Dirt was founded in 1977 in Columbus, Mississippi with 2 dump trucks. Today, they are a leading construction company in the Southeast specializing in turnkey site packages for heavy highway, large industrial, commercial, residential projects. From paving driveways to major highways, their crews are fully equipped to handle any size project. Today, all the way from Mississippi, we're honored to have Nick Parish, Vice President of Operations and Contracting at Burns Dirt. Nick, welcome.
How's it going?
It's good, man. It's good to have you.
Yeah.
You know, I told you mentioned you listened to the podcast with Herb Sargent.
Right.
And at the time, I told him he had traveled the furthest to be on the podcast, but I think you may have just...
That's right. He had a pit stop, right? He came to their Atlantic office.
He did.
The Mid-Atlantic office. So that maybe I've edged him out just because he didn't come all the way from Maine. So
no, thank you for making the trip. You ever spend any time in Charlotte?
I have never been before. I got up this morning about 5 and went on a run, and I was in the uptown area. I got corrected earlier when I got here that it's uptown, not downtown.
It is, yeah.
I went on a run, and it was dead, but it was beautiful. There was nobody around, and I got to see the architecture and stuff, so it was really cool.
Well, the humidity didn't bother you at all. You're used to that.
No, I did. I was going to try to go to the Charlotte FC game. They've got a match tomorrow night. But I couldn't work it in with my schedule this week. So I have been wanting to come to Charlotte because I'm a big soccer fan. So.
It's a great team. They've done a great job with that. We go to the games. That's a good time. We'll get you back up and get you to a game.
That sounds good.
Well, you've listened to the podcast. You know how we introduce our guests. You're married, right?
I am, yes.
So how would your wife introduce you?
So I was listening to the Herb's episode this morning. I thought about how to answer this question, and I think that my wife would describe me as the most obsessive person she knows. I'm one of those people that as soon as I get going down a rabbit hole, I'm just gone and I'm lost. And I kind of may obsess about something for 6 weeks, and she will describe me as have a new hobby every 2 months because I've learned something and obsess about it, learn everything about it to a certain point, and then I back off and go on to something else. So
whatever it is, you're all in for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it's something else.
I call it deep dives. I do deep dives. Now, it may be a deep dive about Bruce Springsteen,
right?
Whatever it is, but I'm going to go on a deep dive for a while, learn everything I can about that one thing, and then move on. So.
Well, that could be exhausting from her standpoint.
Yeah. I think I keep life interesting because I'm always informing her of this. Hey, did you know this about, this one thing? And so kind of keeping something new going on.
You know what? That explains a lot about, we spent the morning together and talking about a lot of what we're going to talk about on this episode, but some of the success that you've had, it requires, you got to go all in. You got to...
It's obsession. It's obsession. Yeah, we were talking a little bit earlier about the ups and downs of the business, and at some points, you can get to where you're struggling with something. But I think obsession has driven me through those ups and downs. Of every time something new comes up or a new problem, I'm obsessively trying to figure out how to push through and how to get that bit of information to overcome that problem. So. Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse.
It is. It is. It absolutely is. Well, look, I want to talk about Burns, but first I want to learn a little bit more about you. Tell me your story. Where'd you grow up, and what'd you do prior to Burns?
So I was born in Amory, Mississippi, which is a small town of about 4,000 or 5,000 people, about an hour north of Columbus. At age of 12, I moved out to Phoenix. My dad worked for MTD, makes Cub Cadet and Troy built, and those outdoor power equipment. He had taken a promotion to be over their global operations, and their R&D facility is in Phoenix. So at age 12, moved to Phoenix and kind of got away from family in the South in general, which at the time I was really excited about, and I never wanted to come back to the South. Kind of through there, I really got into music and played in a bunch of bands in high school and through college, and I started studying. Yeah,
I didn't know that part. I did a lot of research, but your band and your songs never came up.
It's hidden. It's one of those things.
What kind of music was it?
Anything I could get my hands on, really. Pop punk music, and I got into some folk bands and different things. And
you switch every 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Whoever would have me, I'd go play with them. So. I did that, and so I was very plugged in with I feel like the creative lifestyle. I found myself in a session. This one lasted more than 6 weeks. It lasted a couple of years, but I really was interested in the design of furniture. And I think this is really where my kind of professional story begins, is that I started going to Arizona State, and they have a great industrial design architecture program. And so I got really into studying architecture, product design, furniture design, really got obsessed with that. And I found myself drafting about 35, 40 hours a week in college, and had a professor that I'd gotten pretty close with. And I told him, I said, I really love the program, but I hate drafting. I just got to the point I had cramps in my arm, like it was painful to draft this much. And I said, that's my least favorite part. He said, well, you better drop out. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, when you get out, you're probably going to be a draftsman somewhere for 10 years. Which that sounds like it's probably pretty fairly true after I've found out what some engineers do after they graduate school. And so I kind of backed up and said, well, what else is there to do in life? And at that time, my parents were splitting up, and my dad was leaving Phoenix, and my mom was moving back to the South. And I was going to be left as the only person in Phoenix in my family. And my girlfriend at the time, who is my wife now, we were kind of talking about life options, and she said, well, why don't you just move back to the South, and, doesn't your grandfather own a construction company? You can go work there and finish school and kind of figure out what you want to do. So I said, okay, it sounds good. So we did. We packed up, and she moved in with my mom, and I moved next door to my grandparents, and we just kind of started this new life in Mississippi. And she was born and raised in Phoenix, so it was wild roller coaster for her. But it was her idea. So
she was all in as well.
That's right. Yeah. So we did that, and I called, really, I guess back up a little bit, I called my grandfather and I said, hey, I'm thinking about leaving Arizona State and transferring to Mississippi State, and can I get a job? And he said, well, let me think about it. And I thought, well, this is crazy. My grandfather telling me, let me think about getting you a job. What I didn't realize at the time was that he had a deal to sell out and get out of the business and retire and sell out to his brother. And brother had a few sons and was going to get out of the business. It just happened so that day that I called, the next day, one of his key project managers told him he was leaving and going to another business. And so my grandfather called me back a week later and said, yeah, come on. And so I started on a crew. I was working on a storm drainage crew. I spent my first few days just running a jumping jack around a box. And I did that for a few months, and it was a rainy week, and I had done some shop work and some cleanup on the job. And it just got to a point where we really couldn't work. And so we were piddling around in the shop, fixing some stuff. I asked my grandfather, I said, hey, can I come in this afternoon and see what happens in the office? And so I went in to the office, and they had at that time we were taking jobs off with the old digitizer, like the old kind of mat. You'd put the plans up there and you would trace in the lines. And I had taken some CAD classes through my design courses, and I didn't tell anybody that I was a CAD whiz. And so I got in there and I took to it, and I did a great job. I just owned it, really did a great job. And the project management team, estimators, did not want me to leave after that point. So I made myself indispensable to them. And that was my strategy. And then from there on out, that was my strategy, was I'm going to learn everything I can about this business. I had no aspirations of managing a construction company at that point. That was not even still when I got in there and started getting some traction in the industry. I still was like, I'll find something to do. And I just really got obsessed with getting better at everything I did. And that obsession, I think, led me to a point to where I think I was in a good situation in my I was 25.
Did you go back to school?
So I finished at Mississippi State, actually, with economics.
So you were working and going to school at the same time?
There was a couple semesters there where I wanted to get out as quick as I could. I was taking 20, 21 credits and then working 50, 60 hours a week. I'd go bid a job and then go to class and then go check on a job, on campus, and then go back to the office and go home and eat dinner and then come back to the office and work. I got to an unhealthy obsession with just taking on more responsibility and managing more work. And we were growing and chasing bigger projects at the time, so it was easy to get really hungry for that growth personally and see the business growing.
Now, and your grandfather. So did that urge to sell the business, did that go away when you joined the team?
I think that the first year that I was there, I think that he was definitely going, this kid's not going to make it. I'm still going to go down this path of selling out my side. And after a few years, I don't know if that hard work got his attention, but he said, let's back up. And I was there for six years, and the script flipped, and we bought the other side of the family out. And so
Incredible.
I was 25 in an ownership as a managing partner, and became VP of the operations and contracting, and really got into that aspect of it. But I earned my spot. I mean, I will say that I put in the hours and earned that spot, and I think that that's what really flipped him back over to, all right, well, I'll hang around because this. He actually does care about this.
You totally flipped the script on him. I mean, he was ready to get out of the business, and you've come in. It's a different business than it was. What did it look like? Actually, tell me about it. So the company was started in 1977.
77.
Your grandfather
and his brother. Yeah.
And his brother.
Yeah, they saved up some money and bought 2 dump trucks and started hauling, and saved a little bit more money and bought a track loader and hired somebody, and just kind of the same. Save, buy something else, get a little bit bigger project.
What did it look like when you joined?
When I came in, I was number 32 at the company. So we had 32 employees.
And today?
And today we're at 67.
Wow.
So we've doubled over that past decade. We've quadrupled our revenue. At that point in time, we were purely an earthwork contractor. That's all. We did a little bit of storm drainage, but now we are much more chasing turnkey site packages where we're, even managing down the site lighting and landscaping. And that's our business model now, is going to where we can partner with clients that they need someone that understands the struggles they go through as a developer or as a general contractor. And we can come in and have that expertise for all civil trades, and come in and really be able to help carry that portion of the project. Because I think a lot of times developers don't know anything about dirt and utilities. They know something about HVAC and electrical, but they don't know what we do. And so we can come in and be that expertise and do that, provide that service to them. So,
is that what spurred the growth when you guys started taking on the turnkey site services?
Yeah, that was something that I really wanted to do. I felt that we had a need for that. There was a lot of civil contractors in our area that no one wanted to bid prime on a DOT project, and no one wanted to do a turnkey site package for a developer out of Atlanta that was wanting to build an apartment complex in Starkville. Those types of opportunities were really common, to where somebody was wanting to come build something in a college town, and what they wanted is one guy to build the site, and then they're going to bring in their guys to throw the apartments up.
Right.
And we seized that opportunity. And I think that's really what changed the business to why we were able to flip that script, is the other side of the family really liked where we were at. Mm-hmm. My grandfather liked where we were at. But I was able to really take some ownership in the business, that changing the direction and changing the product that we sell, that we're not just a dirt contractor. We're a project management. That on day one in your orientation in our business, we talk about project managers as a product we sell, that we make. That's part of our revenue. That's part of our money. So that drove a lot of that growth, and that drove a lot of the change over the past 10 years.
And then, what was it, 2017, you guys bought out?
Mm-hmm. In 2017, we bought out his brother, and he had a couple sons, and they went off, and we kind of splintered. The family tree splintered a little bit, and they started some smaller businesses, and they're happy doing what they want to do. We just had a mindset change, or a mindset division of where we thought the future of the business was. And then those brothers, and my great uncle was ready to retire. He was ready to go. My grandfather's ready to go, but he's still hanging around a little bit.
So he hasn't given you the keys yet?
He's still our president. He's there in a advisory role.
Okay.
Strongly right now. He does not, he's not there for bidding projects.
So he's given you the keys.
Yeah. And
when did that happen?
So March of 2020.
Okay.
When everything changed.
Right.
For the world.
That was COVID.
Yeah. My grandfather said he'd had some bypass surgeries, and he's very health conscious, and he's in his early mid 70s, I think 73 now. He wanted to go to the house and be safe, and construction that wasn't really physically possible for what we did. So in March of 2020, he said, all right, get after it. And so that's really where things changed for me, was March of 2020, is really when that patriarch shift took place. And so the last 2.5 years have been a wild ride on top of a pandemic. And then,
yeah, you were thrust into a leadership position there, whether you wanted it or not, but you did want it.
I did.
You wanted it the whole time.
Yeah, I think a few years into it, I realized, hey, I am good at this. I enjoy this. I love building things. That's what I wanted to do when I was designing things. That's why I dropped out of design school, was because I wanted to actually do the design portion. I wanted to build things and create things, not just draw them, right? And so I really found this avenue to really create things, create really large things, runways and roads and apartment complexes and whatever else, right? So,
well, and that's interesting. I look back over your career, and you're not that old. I mean,
I'm 29.
29 years old.
Yeah.
You have fast-tracked your career here. And, this word that keeps popping up during the podcast here is obsession. And you were obsessed about getting to a certain level, and to getting to that point to where you were driving and you had the keys and he trusted you to go and lead this thing. I'm always curious, when you got to that point, is it what you thought it would be? Was it different?
I kind of hinted at this earlier, and I've reached a point where I'm glad this part of the conversation comes up, because when I reached that point, 2020 was the second hardest year of my career, because the 21 was really rough. I got to that point where I had this immense amount of pressure to perform, to push our company on through these challenging times, but also I felt there was a lot of changes needed to be made. We needed to clean up our act. Like earlier you said, take care of our house, take care of our own house. And I saw that we needed to make a lot of changes, but I didn't want to make changes overnight. I wanted to be real thoughtful of how we did that. I got really burnt out. And summer of 21, I was ready to quit. I started seeing a therapist, because I was at the point where I even considered that suicide was only the only route out of this, because I had fought so long to become this patriarch and to be the person that all of these people depended on, that I got to a point where that's what I felt was there. This point that I was there, but I did not know the weight that was going to come with it. And that's a big conversation that I have now, is because I have a younger brother. He's 23. He's coming along. He's coming on faster than I am. I was saying earlier or yesterday that when he's my age, he's going to far surpass my knowledge in this industry, because he's so much better at this than I am. But I don't want him to go down the route that I did, and being 28, feeling like this was the only way out. Or to just you wanting to run away because you couldn't escape the stress, you couldn't escape the problems. And
so what do you tell someone like that? How do you coach them through that, knowing that you've gone through this experience and you've lived this?
Yeah.
What do you tell someone like that? What do you tell your brother?
I'm a big evangelist for therapy. Seeing a therapist. I see a therapist every week. Talk to one every week, usually every Wednesday afternoon or Thursday afternoon, about 4:30, 5 o'clock, I sit up and I talk to one. And it's great to talk to someone that you can tell what's going on in life. But also, I have been obsessed with this company, and I've been obsessed with Burns Dirt to a point that one day she told me, she called me out and she said, "You care more about Burns Dirt than you care about your own family." And that was a big turning point. That hurt. Like, I broke down. I couldn't. She said, you care more. I think the way she worded it is, she said, "You light up more when you talk about a dozer than you talk about your daughter." And I was like, man, that hurts. That's where I've gotten to in life. And I think the big focus is finding balance. Now I am in a search for balance. One of my yearly goals, I don't believe in the New Year's resolutions, but I do reassess my goals at New Year's. And this year I wanted to play more golf, which is a weird thing at 29, running a construction company, that one of your goals is to play more golf. I love golf. I played golf in high school and college, but I played 3 times between 2018 to 2021. And I just got out of the things that I love. And so finding those things that I can be a release from work is now a big focus of mine. And so
making a difference.
It is.
Can you tell?
Yeah. I'm able to back up and find places to breathe. I really got into lawn care. I know it's a weird
Golf and lawn care.
Golf and lawn care. Yeah, I've loved grass. I don't know. It's a grass thing, and it's finding. I know that I'm a very obsessive person. I talk about that. That's my personality is get really obsessive. Finding things that are constructive outside of work to let that obsession get out. Okay, if I'm going to obsess about my yard. Okay, well can be it can be unhealthy, but trying to find healthy places, healthy outlets. So,
Nick, I imagine that a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners probably feel the same way that you do, that this becomes part of their identity, that this job is all that they do and they pour everything into it and they become obsessive about it. I imagine that part is pretty normal in our industry and in business in general. What's not normal is the ability to be able to talk about it.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I appreciate you sharing that, and I admire you for that too, to be able to recognize it. It is a heavy burden. What you're asked to do, I pulled this up from LinkedIn, right? And so if I read your responsibilities, this is what it is. These are your responsibilities. Oversee operations for all employees, complete purchasing of heavy equipment and trucks for the company, review financial reports, oversee financial decisions, create, implement erosion control, GPS machine control divisions at firm, implement training programs for equipment operators, estimate costs, public, private, military construction projects, negotiate contracts, purchases, change orders, projects, serve roles at entry level from laborer to executive. Those are your responsibilities.
Yeah.
That's heavy. That's heavy.
That's what I could remember that day when I wrote that.
But even though those are your responsibilities and ultimately you are responsible for those things, that's not your role. And what is your role now at this stage of the game at Burns?
I think this is one thing that helped. Your last question, I answered both of them in a way. We, back in the winter, we went through the Traction EOS system. Forget the author of that book. But
Gino Wickman.
So we as a leadership team sat down and went through Traction. And I realized that my gift is in that the visionary role. I'm not a great integrator. I can't balance the integrating and creation of all of these things. And I have found freedom in that. What I'm trying to figure out is preparing Burns Dirt for the next generation, what Burns Dirt looks like after I'm long gone. And we're third generation business. Statistically, we should fail in this generation. I think it's 94% of family businesses fail in the third generation.
I didn't know that.
I think it goes to 99% at fourth generation. If they don't sell, they fail. Is statistically likely you're going to fail. So I am right now grappling with this vision of what does Burns Dirt look like without a Burns, or what does Burns Dirt look like 20 years from now. And I'm now obsessed with Burns Dirt for 20 years from now. And I've found a lot of freedom in that is my role. And maybe that I have a gift in that visionary aspect of being forward thinking, that I can have an impact down the road for the business. So
a gift is exactly the right word. It is a gift that you have, to be able to see things 10, 20 years down the road, and to have the vision to be able to invest in those things, knowing that you're not going to see a return on it
right
until 5, 10 years down the road. So you do. I agree with you. I from the little bit of time I've spent with you, it is a gift. You've also got a gift of marketing. I think that's something. Do you know that?
It may look like that. I think that I think I don't, and I think I'm just listening to. I'm listening to the right people.
Well, that's marketing. A gift too.
The reason we made a big marketing shift. We had started branding our excavators. That was our first move, and I had my brother and some younger guys. We did the first one, and my brother goes, "That looks like garbage," and I thought, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, the logo looks like it's from the '70s." I said, "I designed that logo." That was one of the first things I did that summer I started here. I designed that logo and realized I designed it for someone that started a business in the 70s, because that's what my grandfather wanted. And so I backed off and kind of let the next generation say, what does Burns Dirt need to look like? And I've kind of gotten out of the marketing game.
Kind of brother trashes your logo. But you know what? Marketing is so much bigger than design, right? It's not just being able to draw and make. It is creating a message. And you have done that. You've been able to create a brand, not just for Burns, but for the industry. And we're going to talk a little bit about what you're doing for the industry side, but I want to hear. So I'm curious. I can see your grandfather. You guys sit down and you start sharing these ideas with him. Like you've got these off the wall ideas of things that you want to do, like painting equipment and all these different ideas. What did that conversation sound like?
When I started that conversation with him, he was just he almost was offended that he accused me of not liking cat yellow. That was the first thing. He's like, "Is there something wrong with cat yellow? You want to paint your machines?" That was a real emotional conversation. We sat down. We have a lunch place that we usually go and if we're going to eat lunch at Harvey's, that means that we're going to have a kind of a business meeting. It's not just checking in with each other. We have a conversation. And so I brought him a deck of this kind of marketing plan and sat down. We started going through all the different things. And I was talking about social media and talking about TikTok. And then I had one that had some renderings of equipment and this new kind of tan color that we've developed that we call Burns Dirt Tan and or Burns Dirt Sand, I believe is the color name for it. And I said, and we're going to paint our machines and put some topographic lines on there. And I kind of flipped and he slapped the paper and flipped it back over. And he was like, "You're going to paint the whole fleet. Is there something wrong with cat yellow?" And I had to have that conversation. And that was tough.
I would have paid money to have been at Harvey's that day. That would have been an incredible conversation to have listened to. Because I can just see him as you're talking about TikTok and you're talking about painting his equipment and social media and all these other things. And he's thinking, what in the world have I done?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I one of the slides showed him that we had over like the previous 90 days, we had 750,000 impressions on across all of our social media. And to me, that's a big deal. I mean, if you're involved in social media, 750,000 over 90 days for a small, construction company, it's something to brag about. And he was like, "What does that mean? What's an impression?"
It meant nothing to him.
Okay, we're going to back up and define some stuff here. But, the funniest thing in that conversation was we rebranded. We came up with this new logo here, and
I like the logo.
Thank you. When we launched it, I got him a nice hat and a shirt, and I kind of packaged it up for him. And he stopped by the office one day. I called him and said, "Hey, can you stop by the office? Got some stuff for you." He stopped by, and I gave it to him, and he said, "Your grandmother doesn't like the logo."
Oh,
and I was like, "Not Nana, I said, he said, "Yeah, she thinks it's hideous."
Oh.
And she probably didn't say that, but it was probably he said that.
It was him.
And I said, "Well, that's okay." I said, "Because we didn't design it for you." And he kind of looked at me. I said, "We're not trying to hire you. You're not who we're recruiting." And that was when it clicked. When I said that, and I said, "I don't like it either. It's not, but it's not for me. They're not recruiting me either." I said, This is, we did studies and we interviewed people and we went out in the field and we talked to people and gave them options and really did a lot of research on this. And the people that you want working at your business love this logo. It's a representation of them. Their colors are a representation of their lifestyle. We use a lot of, he accused it as military look. Well, we have a lot of veterans that work for us. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of hunters that work for us. We use safety orange as the touch points on our machines. They're this kind of tan color, but then all the steps and handles are safety orange. This is familiar colors that they can wear at work, outside of work, and it's their favorite color. So why shouldn't we be a representation of that? And so that was when it really clicked for him.
That's when the light went off. And he said, "Yeah, it's not about me. It's about what's going to appeal to that next generation."
That's right. Yeah.
Well, so all right, so you get some marketing credit there. That's even though you can't draw, you still you've got a knack at being able to draft a narrative to rebrand. And so I want to talk about something else too that I find absolutely fascinating, and that is this Forge. Forge is family organizations recruiting great employees. You were instrumental in helping to get this organization off the ground and get it running. basically you are rebranding the industry. It's not just at Burns anymore. Now you're rebranding the industry in your community. Tell me about Forge and what you're doing there.
So Forge is a group of contractors from our area, all family businesses. We are multi-trade. So there's a general contractor, there's a concrete company, there's a roofing contractor. That was the core group that started. And we're really cross-discipline, but we're all contractors. And so we kind of got tired of complaining about not being able to find, good employees. And so there was a lot of different side conversations about complaining. And we started going to schools and trying to help them look at their training programs, look at their career tech programs, look at what they're teaching in classrooms, and try to kind of polish them. Well, we found out that when we were going individually, it didn't mean anything because we were a small contractor and the schools would just kind of shoo us away. But one day we kind of stumbled across that collectively we employed thousands of people. I think right now we're over 4,000 people with the general membership of Forge. If you look at all of our employees, we are larger than many of the largest employers in our area. There's large manufacturing in our area that have a couple thousand people. We employ more people than that. So we started this approach that we should get the same kind of attention. And so we started going to schools and trying to figure out how to help them with their programs and those types of things. But then we realized after a while that we set up these programs and they were great, and people still weren't signing up. And we realized, the problem's us. The problem is that construction has done a phenomenal job at hiding themselves over the past several decades.
Why is that? Why did we do that?
I don't know. I remember when I was a couple years into this career, I asked my grandfather, I said, why don't we have burns down the side of our dump trucks? Just on the bed, let's put burns. He said, why? So when you break a windshield, somebody can call you and they know who you are.
I think that's it. I think people were so concerned that if they had their name out there that they would get blamed for something, or that someone would.
And there was a lot of that. There is a lot of that still. But we hid ourselves. We've hidden ourselves for so long. And so that was the first thing, was that we need to stop hiding. We need to stop being ashamed. And the second thing, we need to stop the narrative that the only jobs in construction that you can get is holding a stop sign. That's the vision, is that, the flagman is that classic job that moms don't want their babies to grow up and be contractors because that's what she thinks of. She doesn't think about someone that's running a $500,000, D5 with full-fledged machine control earthworks and heated seats.
Right.
That's not what she thinks of. And when we realized that what we do is really cool. We're obsessed about it. We love machines. We love building projects. It feels great to build something. We're not telling that narrative. And that if you don't tell your story, someone's going to tell it for you.
There's a story there.
That's right. We realized that a lot of these, like the nursing career, they outsold us because everybody knows what levels you have to go through and what education you have to go through to be a nurse, but no one knows what you have to go through to be a dozer operator.
Oh yeah, technology outsold us.
That's right. And so we started that, and now Forge, we do all types of events. Our biggest one, and the one I love to talk about, is we do an expo at our local community college every October with 8th graders. And this year we're expecting 2,200 8th graders at this expo, and they get to finish concrete. They get to stack mortar and stack bricks. They get to Husqvarna comes and they can run remote controlled concrete coring machines, coring saws, and you're thinking about an 8th grader holding a remote coring concrete.
I was at a petting zoo as a field day. Right. To go out to an expo like that where you're getting to make concrete and you're playing with heavy equipment and remote control, we partnered so much better. We've
partnered with Thompson Machinery as our local cat dealer, and we're a very heavy cat fleet. And Cat brings a road grader simulator, and we brought the last couple of times we've brought our 12M2 out there with full-fledged machine control UTS system. To us, this is the coolest thing we have in the fleet, right? Bring this thing out there, and 8th graders get on a simulator, run a road grader, immediately walk next door and climb on one that is, they get on it, and their first thing is, I didn't think this thing was this big. right? And they're blown away.
Best day of the year.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This thing is to the point. Last year we had just over 1,000. It was a single day event. This year we're moving to a 2-day. Last year, tickets to it sold out in 45 minutes.
That's incredible. That's incredible. You know what I love about it too is that you're not going out there trying to hire a bunch of 8th graders, right? The whole purpose of this is to introduce them to the industry.
That's right. That's right. Getting how many students have never held a hammer in their hands? They get to hold hammers. They get to climb on skid steers. They get to get in dump trucks. They get to run a CDL dump truck simulator. It's all kinds. It's really, really interactive. So that's the coolest thing that we do. But that is having impacts in kids' lives because they are getting, even if they don't pick construction, what I'm finding and realizing is that by doing that in 8th grade, they're backing up and going, you know what? There's a lot of options. Because up until that point, the narrative they're sold is if you want success, you have to go to college. Look, I went to college, and there's parts of it that I use and parts of it that I don't. But I know a lot of people that have great incomes and have great lives, and they didn't go to college. They chose a trade or they went to a trade school. Those kids are now getting to understand all the options at a fairly early age, or right before they're making those decisions anyways in high school.
Incredible. Nick, you're going to have a hard time getting out of this studio because your head's going to be so big. I've recognized your gifts of vision and marketing, but I'm also going to give you credit for this Forge thing because I think it's a stroke of genius. I really do.
Appreciate it.
You guys, what you've done there is it's so much more than just rebranding the industry. Yes, that's one of the purposes of it. That's one of the benefits of it. But you have gained weight. And when I say that, it's not Nick and a team of 70 that's trying to influence decisions in that community. Right. It's 25 companies and 4,000 families that are represented through this organization. And you guys are doing so much more than just introducing the industry to kids. You're influencing curriculums and schools. You're influencing legislation. You're influencing workforce development, all these different things because you've gained weight. Yeah. And you've pulled people together, and now you're working as a team instead of just beating each other up day after day. I think complaining about it.
I think being small business owners that we're the king of our own little castle, right? If we see something that's a problem, we're going to go out there and change it. We're going to make a policy change. When we got into schools, we found out we would get in there and get frustrated, and we'd get frustrated with academia as a whole. But what we found out was the system was broken and was set up for teachers and principals and administrators to fail at teaching students. And so the past few years, we have really focused on changing legislation, and I think we've now gotten 4 bills passed in the Mississippi legislature to change a lot of the rules. But before we got involved, and not going to take credit completely for the workforce development thing, there's a lot of great organizations out there working on that, but it was really difficult. When we started this, if you went through 2 years of welding at a Mississippi high school and you graduated, you weren't getting a certificate. You'd have to turn around and go through 2 more years to get the same certificates of welding in a community college. That's crazy. That kid should be able to walk out. They've been welding for 2 years in high school. They should get their certificates and go to work and start life. And so that was a simple one of, getting the non-credit, dual credit stuff worked out. And so getting a lot of those things. And now we've got Mississippi just launched career coaches. That was the most recent one we worked on. Is so that any high school that wants one or multiple for certain school districts, they can get a dedicated career coach. So it's kind of like a counselor just for careers. And so they can come in and talk to students and say, what do you want to do with your life? What kind of hobbies are you into? What interests you? Okay, let me get you connected with companies and training pathways so that you can find that career.
And when are they doing that? What age?
So that's all for high schoolers.
That's high school.
So, yeah, it's high schoolers. Yeah, we went through a trial of it the past 2 years. We got some grants and we launched a couple dozen of them across the state, and they were really successful.
Awesome.
And so now I think that's launching this fall. So
that's incredible. Congratulations. Yeah. What a great initiative, and just a incredible model that we got to figure out how to replicate that in different communities. I know you don't want any part of that, but
Right.
But the rest of us do need to figure that out. How do we influence that at that time, right? When they get out of school, you've already missed your window, right? To introduce them to this, and they've got their mind made up of what they want to do or what they like. Kind of like you thought you were going to go and what was it? You went to Arizona State to be a...
I wanted to be a furniture designer.
Furniture designer.
I was obsessed with chairs at the time.
But is that why you went?
Or it was a local university, and I knew they had a good program for it. And I was.
But you were introduced to it there.
Yeah, that was when I was in high school. My high school, weirdly enough, had a good architecture elective course, and I took a lot of architecture CAD classes in high school. And so when I saw architecture and industrial design as a pathway in college, I said, "Well, I've done a little bit of that. I'll go try that." And I ended up liking it, except for the whole.
And that's the key. We've got to introduce them to these things so they can find out what they like, find out what they're good at, what they're gifted at.
Yeah, they may go in 8th grade and go climb on a road grader and go, "Oh, this is lame. I don't want to do this."
Right.
But at least they get the option. At least they get to see it.
So this is the part of the podcast where I ask you to give us a dirt a little bit. What's next for Burns? What's the next obsession?
The next obsession, we have spent the past year, really thinking about what does Burns Dirt look like down the road. We have shifted away from, I think, the culture of the obsession with iron and everyone loving iron to being your brother's keeper. And that Burns Dirt as a whole, we are undergoing a massive cultural shift to people are first. And that is the conversation now, and that people are first. And I think that as we go down the road, that is going to carry us across lots of turbulence and tribulations that we're going to have going down the road. And I think that we're having a lot of leaders step up right now because of that people first mentality. And I think we're going to have a lot of growth. We're branching out and going out in some other markets. It's not a secret to anybody. We've been reaching over into Alabama a lot further and chasing projects because we have some really young leaders that our craft side of the field is 15 years younger than the industry average. We have a lot of young leaders in our we only have a couple of superintendents over 40. Most of them are in their 30s. And we're a young business, and there's a lot of those guys want more opportunities in their lives. And so we're growing in order to give those folks more opportunities so that they can reach, they can shoot for the stars. And focusing on making them successful is going to make the business as successful as possible. But I think you're going to see Burns Dirt reaching out past, the Golden Triangle in Columbus, Mississippi, and getting into a larger radius. So,
Not Charlotte.
Yeah, this is a long ways away.
I'm just kidding. No, you know what? I love the investment in the people, and we talked about this earlier as well. I never will forget. Brian McManus said, if we can get our house in order and we can get people to enjoy coming to work and enjoy working with each other, and we can invest back into them, we'll have people lined up to work here. Mm-hmm. And so we were spending so much time and so many resources trying to fix the problem, but the problem was under the hood. And we had to go in and we had to start working on ourselves first. But I agree with you. You make that investment into people, then all the other problems will go away.
All right, I agree.
Well, Nick, it has been a joy to have you here. Hats off to you. I cannot imagine having everything on my shoulders at 29 years old that you have. That's a lot, but there's no doubt that you are doing a great job with it. You're strong, and you are doing a lot, not just for your company and all the families represented at Burns Dirt, but for the industry and for the state of Mississippi. So hats off to you. It's inspiring. Appreciate you guys came up here and gave us time. I think we took more notes today than you guys did. So thanks for coming all the way from Mississippi and sharing with us.
Well, I appreciate it. Come see us sometime. Hopefully you can make it out to the expo.
I want to come to the expo. It's October, right?
October. Yeah, I'll get you the dates.
We'll do that. Nick, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Give Us the Dirt. Our podcast is powered by Hoopah Grading Company in Charlotte, North Carolina, and visit our website at giveusthedirtpodcast.com. And subscribe to this podcast on Apple and Google so you never miss an episode.